Hey there and welcome to BingeBot, where we recap all the latest and greatest TV shows to help keep you in the loop. Today we're diving deep into the latest sci-fi sensation, Three Body Problem, a mind-bending drama based on the best-selling novel. Hey, if you enjoy our recaps and you want to help out the channel, you can do so via YouTube memberships, Patreon, or Buy Me a Coffee, and we appreciate all of the support. And with that out of the way, let's get started with Episode 1, Countdown. In the tumultuous 1960s China, under the oppressive rule of Chairman Mao, an astrophysics prodigy by the name of Wenjie is subjected to ordeals that no human being should ever have to endure. After witnessing the unjust execution of her father, Ye is forced into grueling labor, relentlessly cutting down trees every single day. Fortunately, things change for Ye once the Chinese government acknowledges her profound knowledge of astrophysics and offers her an opportunity to work at a highly classified facility called the Red Coast, which resides atop a remote hill. This opportunity comes with a catch though. If Ye enters the facility, she'll never be allowed to leave. Seeing this as her only chance to continue her work in astrophysics, Ye accepts without a second thought. After several months at Red Coast, Ye is allowed to witness the program's capabilities as she watches a radio telescope dish emit a transmission towards the sky, resulting in the death of all of the nearby birds. Intrigued by this spectacle, Ye asks her supervisors about the nature of this transmission, prompting them to give her the astonishing answer that they're broadcasting signals into outer space, hoping to establish contact with an alien civilization. Fast forward to 2024 in London. A group of friends, all physicists who attended Oxford together and are now known as the Oxford Five, gather in a bar under somber circumstances, mourning the recent death of their mentor, Vera Ye, who took her own life. Jin Chang, one of the Oxford Five, is determined to find out why Vera would do such a thing. And looking for answers, Jin visits Vera's mother, who happens to be Wenjie, who had moved to London in the 80s following the death of Chairman Mao, which allowed her to leave the Red Coast and go anywhere that she wanted.
Was that you?
In another life, my first job.
You're beautiful.
I was. Time is a mother.
Although Ye doesn't provide an explanation for her daughter's death, she claims that Vera had been obsessed with a VR video game before her passing. Once Ye hands over the video game headset, Jin is astonished to find that it's just one small silver piece with nothing else attached to it, a lot different from any VR headset that she's ever seen. Jin isn't the only one faced with a mystery, as another member of the friend group, Augie Salazar, is dealing with a unique predicament. For the past few days, Augie's been seeing a countdown timer in front of her eyes wherever she looks. Understandably, she's terrified by this, especially since the countdown is now down to 1 day, 15 hours, and 38 minutes. While looking at the sky through the ominous numbers, Augie is suddenly approached by a woman that she's never seen before, Tatiana Haas, who reveals that she knows Augie is seeing the countdown. Before Augie can respond, Tatiana warns her that she wouldn't like what'll happen if the countdown reaches 0, informing her that it'll only stop if Augie shuts down her nanotechnology program.
It's easy to make it stop. You put an end to your work. No more nanofibers. You shut down the lab. Simple.
Before leaving, Tatiana senses that Augie is still skeptical. To shatter her doubts, Tatiana tells Augie that tomorrow night she should look up at the sky exactly at midnight and she'll see an unequivocal sign that she must do as Tatiana has told her. And indeed, the following night, Augie heads outside and looks up in the sky, accompanied by the third member of the Oxford Five, Saul Durand, who isn't aware that Augie is seeing a countdown at all. Right as the clock strikes midnight, something that shouldn't be possible happens. All of the stars in the sky begin to flicker, literally as if someone is flipping the light switch on and off. While this strange phenomenon can be seen by everyone around the world, it's actually a message to Augie specifically, as Saul recognizes the flickering is conveying a Morse code. Deciphering the code, Saul informs Augie that there are no letters, it's all numbers, and once he begins to read them, Augie is stunned as the numbers match her countdown precisely, 10, 34, 06, with each flicker ticking off the seconds one by one. Episode 2, Red Coast. In the morning, there's a palpable excitement at Augie's lab as the final test of her nanotechnology is underway. Much to the delight of the team, the test is a success, with the invisible nanofibers cutting through a cube with such precision that, to the naked eye, it appears as if the cube remains intact, until Augie gives it a light tap with her pen. As the room erupts in celebration, Augie decides to do as she'd been told and abruptly announces that the entire program is to be terminated immediately. She then storms out of the building with the countdown, now just a little over a minute, disappearing, filling her with relief. Having taken the VR game home, Jin decides to try it out for herself, and once she puts the headset on, she's transported to an ultra-realistic virtual world that feels exactly like real life. She can even feel, smell, and taste everything around her.
This is insane.
A moment later, Jin's greeted by a character in the game who explains that, in order to advance, she must use her knowledge to predict the movement of the sun in this virtual world, as this would allow the inhabitants to determine the condition of their planet during the current era, and take the necessary measures to protect themselves.
You must decide whether an era is chaotic or stable. If Emperor Zhou is wrong, an entire civilization will be destroyed.
To emphasize the importance of this, the game shows Jin the catastrophic consequences if her prediction of the sun's movement is inaccurate. It appears that Jin will get some help though, as her friend and fourth member of the group, Jack Rooney, comes home to find a white box with his name engraved on it, leaving him baffled as to how it got into his house despite his cutting-edge security system. Once Jack opens up the box, he finds a headset and a note inviting him to play. Back in 1977, while monitoring the signals received from outer space, Ya receives a transmission that leaves her in disbelief, a message from an alien civilization written in Chinese, the same language that Red Coast program had sent their transmissions in. Surprisingly, the alien message begins with "do not respond," repeated 3 times for emphasis. The alien sending the message then explains that they're a pacifist, which is why they're warning whoever is reading this message not to respond, stressing that if their species receives a response, they will come and conquer Earth. Despite all the warnings not to respond, Ya, having been enslaved, tortured, and imprisoned all of her life, decides that humanity deserves to face the consequences. With this in mind, she decides to respond to the alien species with a concise message, inviting them to Earth, explaining that the human race cannot save itself, and ending her message by assuring the aliens that she'll help them conquer the planet. Episode 3: Destroyer of Worlds. Jin and Jack, now obsessed with the video game, finally come to the realization that it's impossible to accurately predict the sun's movement, due to the fact that the sun in this virtual world is part of a gravitational system with 2 other suns, thus creating a 3-body problem, which is essentially unsolvable as the gravitational system inevitably becomes too chaotic to predict. Upon understanding this, Jin deduces that the true goal of the game isn't to predict the sun's movement, but to figure out a way to save the civilization. Now that they know the game's true goal, the duo are met by the AI that controls the game, which takes the form of a woman with a sword on her back. The AI begins to explain that the game was developed by an alien race known as the San-T, who are using it to communicate to humans that the San-T's planet is in a hopeless state due to the 3-body problem.
No computer can predict the behavior of 3 bodies indefinitely. The 3 suns in the sky, every civilization ends in chaos.
As a result, the San-T's only option is to flee and inhabit another planet, which is precisely the reason they've constructed an interstellar fleet of 1,000 spaceships, all of which are on their way to Earth, a journey that will take them 400 years. Finally, the AI emphasizes that even if only one of the San-T survives, they all do. While Jin is willing to believe that all this is true, Jack is much more dismissive, refusing to believe that the game was created by aliens who are on their way to Earth, even going as far as calling it a scam. Later that night, alone in his home, Jack is terrified to find Tatiana, the mysterious woman who told Augie to stop her nanotechnology, appearing suddenly at his home, only to start stabbing him repeatedly and killing him. Episode 4: Our Lord. Following Jack's demise, his friends are contacted by the British Chief of the Secret Intelligence Service, MI6, Thomas Wade, and his most reliable agent, Clarence Da Shi. After finding out that Jin and Jack communicated with the San-T, Wade concludes that the alien species must have been involved in Jack's murder, which prompts Jin to disclose that the San-T have actually invited her to an upcoming event. Upon hearing this, Wade comes up with a plan that Jin should attend this event while wearing a wire, with MI6 vans stationed nearby, ready to intervene at the right moment.
You can go home, mourn your friend, spend the rest of your life wishing you had acted differently the night he died. Or you can help us catch the cunts who murdered him.
Arriving at the event, Jin finds herself among a large crowd of people, including Tatiana, who greets her with a hug. Within a few moments of talking to Tatiana, Jin discerns that the individuals here are not just people who believe that the aliens are coming, but they're devout worshippers of the San-Ti, even referring to them as their lord. Just when Jin thought things couldn't get any weirder, she's left speechless when she discovers that the founder of this organization is none other than Wenjie, who's been a fervent worshipper of the San-Ti ever since she invited them to the Earth 47 years ago.
We must prepare the world for their arrival and prepare our descendants to welcome them.
Once Ya's identity is exposed, the MI6 agents storm the building, causing widespread panic and compelling Tatiana to open fire, triggering a gunfight between MI6 and the San-Ti fanatics. Once MI6 puts an end to the chaos, they all arrest the survivors except for Tatiana, who manages to escape despite being shot in the leg, indicating that the San-Ti are still looking out for her. Episode 5: Judgment Day. Upon discovering that Ya had a partner named Mike Evans, who lives on a ship containing a device capable of instant communication with the San-Ti, Wade and Clarence decide that they must eliminate everyone on the ship, while preserving the storage drive containing all of the Evansons' communications with the San-Ti. Realizing that they need a precise weapon, Clarence visits Augie and convinces her to continue the production of her nanofibers, even if it means that she'd start seeing the countdown again. Strangely, when Augie begins production of the nanofibers this time, the countdown doesn't appear, leaving her to wonder why that is. Regrettably, the answer to this question doesn't give Augie any pleasure, as she learns that her nanofibers will be used to kill around 1,000 people on Evans' ship, including children. Despite being vehemently opposed to this operation is deemed necessary, and Augie is forced to set up a trap for the ship. As the ship passes through the trap, the nanofibers begin their dissection. It's almost as if the ship is passing through several invisible razor-sharp blades that slice through everything in their path, resulting in the brutal death of everyone on board the ship and the ship itself being cleaved into pieces. Upon finding the storage drive unharmed in Evan's pocket and connecting it to a computer, Clarence finds the drive unlocking its security system by itself, a sign that the San-Ti want humans to see what's on it. As expected, the drive holds all of the communication voice recordings between Evans and the San-Ti, who spoke to him in a gentle human voice. What's surprising, though, is a file named Sophon that's over 100 petabytes, the equivalent to an astounding 100 million gigabytes, leaving everyone wondering what sort of file could be so large. After hearing everything that was said between the San-Ti and Evans, Wade decides to play the recording of the final minutes of communications to Ya, wanting to shatter her faith in the San-Ti. Pressing play, Ya hears Evans explaining to the San-Ti that humans have the ability to lie, a concept that's utterly baffling to the San-Ti, as they're incapable of communicating anything but the truth. After taking a moment to consider the implications of this, the San-Ti express they're now afraid of humans and cannot coexist with them as they cannot be trusted.
A liar cannot be trusted. We cannot coexist with liars.
Terrified by this, Evans desperately reaffirms his loyalty to the San-Ti, begging them to respond. But sadly for him, these pleas fall on deaf ears, as the San-Ti have decided to go completely silent from that point on. Upon hearing this, Ya can't help but feel unsettled, as she now understands why the San-Ti have abandoned her. Recognizing that Jin's extensive knowledge of theoretical physics would be useful, Wade decides to hire her to join his team. And wanting to find out what the Sophon file is, Jin and Wade put on VR headsets and are met by the AI, who begin to answer all of their questions on behalf of the San-Ti. When asked why she looks like a human, the AI explains that the San-Ti chose to give all the characters a human appearance, knowing that their true form would be far too disturbing to humans. Having addressed that, the AI begins to explain that the San-Ti have been using all of their resources to create 4 ultra-powerful proton-sized sentient supercomputers called Sophons. A few months earlier, 2 of these Sophons were sent to Earth and infiltrated the cornerstones of human science, such as all of the particle accelerators around the globe, including the Large Hadron Collider. Because of this, all of the facilities are rendered useless, as they now provide nonsensical and inconsistent results, effectively kneecapping the progress of human technology. Perhaps even more terrifying is that the Sophons have enveloped the Earth, which is how the San-Ti were able to make the sky flicker. Alarmed, Jin and Wade remove their headsets and step outside to witness the Sophon reveal itself, showing off its boundless power by causing all of humanity's electronics to display 3 words, letting everyone know exactly how little the San-Ti think of them by telling them that they're nothing more than bugs. Moreover, the Sophons form a massive eye in the sky, conveying that humanity is under constant surveillance, being monitored in every place at any time around the globe, and have the ability to instantly transfer that data to the San-Ti, a terrifying vision that causes everyone to panic except for the most devout San-Ti worshippers, who rejoice that their lord is always keeping an eye on them. Episode 6. The Stars Our Destination. Understanding that victory against the San-Ti is impossible without at least knowing what they really look like, Jin and Wade conclude that they must send a probe to meet the alien fleet before they reach the Earth. To bring this ambitious plan to life, Jin proposes the innovative idea of strategically placing 1,000 nuclear bombs in space and launching a probe, attached to a solar sail, in the direction of the explosives. Each bomb is to be detonated just as the probe sails past it, boosting its speed. And after the final detonation, the probe is expected to reach a speed just over 1% the speed of light, which is fast enough to give humans a glimpse of the San-Ti 200 years before their estimated arrival on Earth. Realizing that the San-Ti are likely aware of this plan now, thanks to the ever-watchful Sophon, Jin anticipates that the San-Ti will instantaneously destroy the probe before it can even transmit images back to Earth. To circumvent this, Wade figures that they must send a human brain inside the probe, which would deter the San-Ti from destroying it, as they would be compelled to bring the brain aboard their fleet and study it.
We're not sending a camera. We're sending a human being.
Episode 7. Only Advance. Recognizing that the San-Ti would only be interested in a highly intelligent brain with a deep understanding of advanced human science, Wade realizes that they need to send an exceptional scientist who's already on the brink of death and willing to donate their brain for the cause. Sadly, Jin realizes that she knows someone who perfectly fits this description, the final member of the Oxford Five, Will Downing, who's tragically diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, giving him only a few more days left to live. With no other options left, Jin asks Will if he's willing to donate his brain. And realizing that he doesn't have much longer to live, Will decides to confess to Jin that he's always been secretly in love with her, and instantly agrees to do whatever she needs him to for her plan to succeed.
Sometimes when you're really high, you see people. Or maybe it's when you're dying. But I see you.
And just like that, Will is euthanized, and his brain is preserved in hibernation and loaded onto the probe, all while Jin sorrowfully watches on. Believing that Yaz told them everything she knows about the San-Ti, Clarence decides that it's time to release her. And now free, Yaz meets with Saul and decides to tell him a cryptic joke about Einstein dying and then going to heaven. Once he enters paradise, the angels present Einstein with a beautiful violin, telling him that he can keep it, but he must never play it. Despite the angels' warning, once Einstein hears God playing his saxophone, he decides that he must perform a duet with him. Unfortunately, once God hears Einstein's violin, he appears, strikes Einstein, and destroys his violin. The punchline of the joke being that no one should ever play with God.
An angel comes over and says, "We warned you. Never play with God."
After mystifying Saul with this joke, Yaz bids him farewell, books a flight to China, and returns to the now abandoned Red Coast facility. Unexpectedly, Tatiana is also there, conveying that the San-Ti have ordered her to kill Yaz. After embracing each other and enjoying the sunset together for one last time, Tatiana gently ends Yaz's life. Episode 8. Wallfacer. Back in London, Saul finds himself in a meeting with Clarence, who informs him that Yaz has been murdered. Before Saul can comprehend what Yaz's death might have to do with him, he's even more confused when Clarence orders him to put on a bulletproof vest and escorts him onto a heavily guarded private plane destined for a United Nations summit in New York. Feeling out of place, Saul watches as the UN Security General, Lillian Joseph, announces the initiation of a new program to fight the San-Ti. The concept of the program is simple yet ingenious. The UN has selected 3 individuals tasked with coming up with a solution to the San-Ti invasion entirely within their minds, meaning that these individuals must keep their plans a secret, never writing them down or sharing them with anyone until the moment of execution. And that way, even the San-Ti would be kept in the dark, as while the Sophon can watch what humans can do and hear and say, it cannot read their thoughts. Given the nature of this program, the 3 chosen individuals are to be known as the Wallfacers, a term inspired by the ancient Buddhist tradition of sitting in front of a wall for extended periods, doing nothing but meditating.
The Sophons have vast power, but they are not all-powerful. They cannot read our minds. This is the basis of what we call the Wall-Facer Project.
Having explained the plan, Lillian proceeds to announce the 3 wall-facers. General Hu Bolin and Professor Layla Arish are 2 logical choices, as they're both renowned war strategists. The third choice, however, is Saul himself, who believes that there must be some sort of mistake as he has no experience whatsoever in warfare. And for that reason, Saul informs Lillian that he declines the wall-facer position, and without arguing, she immediately accepts his declination. Despite this, as Saul steps out of the building, he's instantly shot by a sniper, but fortunately his bulletproof vest saves his life. Wanting to understand the sniper's motives, Saul confronts him, only for the sniper to explain that he's a worshipper of the San-Ti who ordered him to assassinate Saul, making it clear that this won't be the last attempt on his life. Disturbed by this, Saul meets with Lillian once more, questioning why the San-Ti would target him if he's not a wall-facer. In response, Lillian delivers the harsh reality that it simply doesn't matter whether Saul says he's a wall-facer or not, the San-Ti will always view him as one, as they cannot read his mind to discern whether he really declined the position or was just trying to deceive them. Frustrated, Saul asks Lillian why he was chosen to be a wall-facer in the first place, leading her to answer that he could only know the real reason he was selected. Reflecting on Lillian's words, Saul eventually realizes it probably has something to do with his final meeting with Ya, more specifically, the strange joke that she told him, leading him to consider that it might not have been merely a joke, but an elaborate metaphor possibly containing the solution to the alien invasion. Returning to London, Saul joins Jin in witnessing the launch of Will's brain into space. The launch initially proceeds without a hitch, with each nuclear explosion propelling the probe faster and faster. But tragically, disaster strikes when one of the wires connecting the probe to the solar sail snaps, causing the probe to deviate from its intended trajectory, which makes it highly unlikely to be intercepted by the San-Ti fleet. Understandably, Jin and Saul are disheartened. Not only is Will's brain drifting aimlessly in space, but they're also no closer to finding a solution to the invasion, making them feel like they're really just bugs compared to the San-Ti. Noticing their despair, Clarence, whose job is now to protect Saul at all costs, decides to take the sad duo on a drive. Arriving at a swamp, Jin and Saul find themselves standing among swarms of bugs, which helps Clarence make the argument that being a bug really isn't a bad thing, pointing out that despite humans' relentless attempts to eradicate bugs for decades, bugs are clearly still thriving to this day.
People hate bugs. Been trying to get rid of them forever. Look around. They're not going anywhere.
Inspired by this insight, Saul and Jin regain their motivation and decide to get back to work, determined to find a new solution to the San-Ti invasion. Well, that brings us to the cliffhanger ending of 3 Body Problem Season 1. I'm really excited to see what they do with Season 2, because I'm sure any of my fellow book readers know just how weird and dark the story gets. That's it for now, though. If you liked the video, we'd love it if you would drop a like or share it with a friend. And if you want to stay up to date with all of our uploads, consider subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to ring the notification bell if you do. Thanks again to all of our YouTube members, patrons, and Buy Me a Coffee supporters. Your contributions are seriously greatly appreciated. That's it for this recap. We'll be back soon, but for now, BingeBot is logging off.